Good morning, students of class 6. Today we are going to study about history. Now, the very first chapter is studying history. So, I'll be teaching you social science, and today is your first social science class, and my name is Blessy. So, these are the four things that we will be covering today, and we will keep it very short so we don't have to do a lot of study on the first chapter today. We will continue it next class. So, the main topics that we will be covering in this chapter is first one is what is history. Here we will study the meaning of history and the definition of historians. The second one is the history of India. India had a history, so we will study about that. Then dates in history, and the last one is information about the past. So let's look into the first one. What is history? History simply means studying about our past. Okay, so anyone who studies about the past more in detail is called as a historian. Is it simple? What is history? Study of past. And a person who studies more about the past is called as historian. Now, why is it so important to study history? Is history a fun subject or a boring subject? History is very fun subject. You know why? Because history teaches us about our past. Now, what are the three tense? Past, present, and future. And what is the importance? Why is it so important to study about the past? Because whatever has happened in our past has a direct influence in our present, which means in our day to day life, whatever we do is a reflection of what was happening in the past. In the same way, whatever we do today will reflect in our future. This is the reason why the study of past is so relevant and so important. And another thing, since we can relate past with our present, this is also important because we understand today's society and the origin of today's society from the past, and we can learn about ourselves from the past. Now, a proper understanding of the past will help us to solve most of the problem that we are facing in our day-to-day life. For example, now there is a issue of discrimination that we face in our society today. But did it start today? Did it start 5 years ago? No, it also existed in the past. Why did people discriminate in the past? This is because of the wrong practices and belief that was held in the past centuries. Now, that is why they did a discrimination. However, even today, some people believe or do continue this discrimination without realizing it was because of wrong practices. Once you and me realize it is a wrong practice, we will stop discriminating people. So that is the reason it's very important to learn history so we will know what happened in the past and we can act effectively in the present to have a good future. Now, the history of India. How did India get this name India? Did India have any other name? Of course it did. It also had a name Bharat. Now, how did India get this name? There is something called River Indus, which runs in the east of India. So, the since River Indus was there, the river gave the name to the people who live by the river bank as India. Okay, the place near River Indus is called India. How did people come here? Around 2,500, 25,000 years ago, in the northwest, there were people living. Okay, However, when Indus River flooded, this entire civilization got destroyed. Now, this place is called as India, right? Because India got its name from river Indus. India also has another name called Bharat, which we got because of a people group called Bharathas who were living in the northern region. And their name is also mentioned in the Rig Veda. So these two reasons give two names for India. Because of river Indus, we have India, and because of the people Bharatas, we have the name Bharat. So we learned about history, we learned about the history of India. Now let's move on to the dates. The dates is always divided into A, B, C and AD. Okay. Now, what is BC and what is AD? BC is before Christ and AD is Anno Domini, which means in the year of the Lord. Now, what does it actually mean? Why do we have AD and BC? Let's see that. Okay. Before Christ, B, C, something happened here which divided the times into A, B. Now, BC means before Christ. So, before Christ meaning before the birth of Jesus Christ. Okay. And AD means Anno Domini, in the year of the Lord. Now, who is the Lord? Lord is Jesus Christ. So, when he was born, the history was divided into two. So, before him and after him. And on the time he was born, it's called as in the year of the Lord, in his time. So, in the year of the Lord, what happened? A new era was created, which is called AD. Now, when we mark BC, we start from this side, correct? Because the beginning was here. Yeah. So, we will say 100 BC, 200 BC, 300 BC, 400 BC, let's say 50,000 BC. So, or else let's say 500 BC, right? And let's say here was the birth of Jesus Christ, and we stop here, and from here AD starts. 100 AD, 200 AD, 300 AD, 400 AD, etc. Now, BC is calculated backward, right? 500 BC, 400 BC, 300 BC. AD is calculated forward because it is before. Now, when I say 300 BC, I say before 300 years before Christ. Okay. 200 AD, 200 years after Christ. So, these are the dates. I hope you understood the difference between BC and AD and why and how it is counted. BC is counted backward and AD is counted forward. And currently, we have something called CE, which is Common Era. So now we call before Common Era and after Common Era. This is now this is used by most of the historians, or currently these is used. Okay. Now, to study history, we also need sources from which we get the information from. How did we know India's name was derived from Indus? How did we know people named Bharatas lived in India? How did we know Christ was born? How did we know all this about history? We know all this because of the information that we get about the past. And everything and anything that gives us any kind of information about the past is called as source. Okay, do not forget that. Anything and everything that gives us information about the past is called as source. Now, we have two kinds of sources. One is material source, and the other one is literature source. Okay. Material sources, goods, items that we can touch, that we can see, that we can use. This marker is a material source. Whiteboard is a material source. Literature source is something that we can read and write. And this thing, the word that I've written on top of this board is a literature source because it is a language. Anything that can be written and read is a literature source, and anything that can be used as a material is called as a material source. Now, under material source, we have pots, we have coins, we have sculptures, we have monuments, etc., even bones. Now, if we take pots, we will understand what kind of mud they had and what is the color of the mud, type of mud, etc., that they used in that particular era. Now, if we take coins, we understand about the kinds of metals they used, the kinds of designs they had, and the technology they had. When we take bones of the old, and when we find bones, what do we understand? We understand that this particular animal or this particular bird lived in that century, or even people ate this particular animal. We even have found residues of millets and grains that people have used. From that, we understand that they also used that for their food supplies. Now, how do we get all these sources? From where do we get all these sources? There is something called a group of people who study this, okay, sources. A group of people who study only on the material sources are called as archaeologists. An archaeologist studies on material sources. Now, what do they do? We have layers of soil in earth. So they dig each layer of the soil little by little, and they dig and they find the bones or the plates or the pots, whatever is buried. So they dig it layer by layer to find out where exactly in which layer is this place. So layer is important because layer helps them to date. The more down the material is found, the more old, more top it is found, more new. Because as years pass by, sand or the soil keeps forming and it keeps burying it underneath, right? So these people who dig to find out about the material remains, to find the material source, is called as archaeologists, and those sources that we find is called as archaeological sources, and the place, the land where they dig is called as site. Okay, now that is about material source. Now let's look into some non-material source or literature or literary source. One of the main literary sources is manuscripts. Okay, manuscripts are usually written in palm leaf. So it will be like this, a leaf, the leaf of the plant, and men used to write, let's say, on this. And because man wrote the script, it's called as manuscript. Okay, because man wrote the script on these. It's called as manuscript. Now, when there was more important events than writing on palm leaf, they also wrote on metallic surfaces or stones or any other strong surface. And when we have to write on a stone, I can't just write. I have to inscribe. I have to inscribe it. I have to put force and I have to make a mark, right? So that is called as inscription. Okay. Now, manuscript is when you write it, but when on a metal or any harder surface, when you inscribe it, is called as inscription. So today we learned what is history, the importance of history, the names of Indian history and the past, our past, history of India. We learned about dates, AD and BC. We learned about information of the past and how we get this information. So today we will end the class here and thank you.